Welcome to another episode of Breaking the Glass Ceiling. This is your host, Kofi Thompson here, and I'm super excited to bring my very good friend back here, Dr. Brad Wolf. Man, we shot an episode a couple months ago, and I absolutely loved it. I feel like there's just so many areas when it comes to people's health, increasing their health span, really living life in a better way that needs to be talked about more often, right? I know we last time we were on the show together, we talked about, you know, how a lot of ways that we usually treat people's bodies is more reactive than proactive, and how you can actually take better steps now to really live a better life in the future. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Brad Wolf.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Of course, man. So I'm excited because, again, as I mentioned, I feel like this is something that people should be, constantly reminding themselves of how they can be taking care of their body better. And especially when it comes to, just treating your joints and your back in the right way. I know that we've had quite a few discussions offline, even about, back problems that I've had. And you've given me so many amazing tips. And I was like, man, we got to come back onto the show again because this stuff needs to be, we need to release this out into the world because so many people need to hear this.
Absolutely.
So I was doing some research and I mean, I can't say I was surprised, but it was pretty, illuminating to hear about how many people actually suffer from back pain. So I want to talk about that. I want to start there. What I found in some research that I was doing that 75.8 million Americans, around 29% of our population, suffers from back pain. And back pain, lower back pain is like one of the leading causes of disability. And
It's actually the number one. It's the number one cause of disability in the world, not just in the United States, all around the world.
oh wow. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
the correction there. Yeah, that's heavy. I mean, and when you think about it, it's one of the most expensive, conditions to treat in aggregate because a lot of times people, may solve, their issue temporarily, but I mean, 7 out of 10 people, they usually, come back with more back pain even after they've been treated. So just kind of starting off, what do you feel is the cause of all this, back pain? Like, do you feel like it's, part of the like modern lifestyle that we're living? What do you feel like are the main causes to that's been leading to so many people, suffering from lower back pain?
sure. There are a lot of different causes, but it really stems down to a handful of things that
Mhm.
really are primary. And the first thing is that we have what I call your spinal architecture, which is like the physical shape of your body, the shape of your spine, the shape of the alignment of your pelvis, the distance between your pelvis, your knees, and your feet. Like all of that matters. And so people are doing various things, whether they're running, they're doing various activities. And if your pelvis is not level, if you're causing a excess amount of stress on the body through compressive stress, right? There's a lot of downward pressure, and a lot of people they're running on a concrete sidewalk or walking on tile floors.
Yeah.
That compression, in combination with the effect of gravity above us, we have this force coming down on us. And one of the things I speak to my patients about is, the spine behaves like you're hammering a nail into wood. If the
Mm.
nail is straight, it goes in straight, but if it's bent, it's going to bend more. And so in this scenario, the hammer is gravity and our body is the nail. But what happens with some people is some people develop abnormal curvature in their spine. So scoliosis is probably the most common. And with scoliosis, it acts more like a screw than a nail, causes turning of the spine. And so that would be kind of one category of problem. Now, um, let's say the architecture of your lower back is in good position, certainly
Mhm.
like what you were speaking about, which is, people's body position when they're working. So, whether they're sedentary, they're not being active, or they're sitting in front of a computer for a long time.
Mhm.
Posture means positioning, and the positioning of our body matters a lot. Because we have this downward force of gravity, it's much stronger than people realize. And I don't know about you, but when I was in school and we learned about gravity, we just learned about how things fall.
Yeah.
It's like, it falls,
Mhm.
right? So that was the nature of gravity. We didn't really understand the connection that gravity is actually on our body too.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so it's a combination of things, and there are physical reasons why it happens. So one of the mental models that I teach people in the office is about kind of connections. And we're going to right off the bat, I'm going to share a thought with people, because most of us, when we went through biology, we learned that there were basically 11 different systems of the body.
Mhm.
And so, just as a reminder, maybe a nightmare, but no, as a reminder for people in their lives, there's the digestive system and the respiratory system and the endocrine system and the immune system and all these different systems of the body. But what happened in actuality was that those divisions in the body actually became medical specialties.
Mhm.
So we're
Yeah.
actually taught through a medical mindset about the human body, which kind of leads to some of the other conversations that we're going to have later in this
Mhm.
about the reaction to the body versus the health of the body, the wellness of the body, the longevity of the body, the like you talked about, health span. And so when we're looking at the wellness of the body or the health span of the body, there aren't 11 systems, there's just three.
Interesting. Elaborate. Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the three are as such. The first is what we call structure.
Okay.
So when we learned in school, we learned that there's a skeletal system and a muscular system. But what I think is missing in that conversation, because we tend to think of bones and muscles because we can feel them, we can see them.
Mhm.
But what we are missing in that is that there are bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons, cartilage, bursa, and fascia,
The connective tissues, yeah.
and connective tissue. And
Yeah.
so to me, structure is comprised of all of those divisions. Now,
Mm.
if we're going to take bones and we're going to send them off to the orthopedic doctors, they're bone doctors. They're not muscle doctors.
Mm.
You, with your muscles, they're not going to deal with that. They're going to deal with the bones. And so, again, you have to understand what model you're looking through. And in my world, I've been since I was 19, I'm turning 56 this summer. And so, just in the course of my life, I've been pursuing what I call a wellness lifestyle. But
Mm.
let me just finish the thought here. So,
Mhm.
so the first is structure. And structure is, like I said, bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons, cartilage, bursa, and fascia. The second one is referred to as the nervous system. Now, we know the nervous system because we learned there is a nervous system.
Yeah.
It's really its own system. And the nervous system runs through through the middle of the body, right? So we have our brain up here,
Mhm.
spinal cord extends through the spine, and then the nerves that go down the arms, they go down the legs, they go to your heart, your lungs, your stomach, all over your body. So it's the communication system. And when the structure breaks down, it has a direct effect on the nervous system. And so sometimes people have nerve related problems, disc related problems, which is a structure issue, which then puts pressure on the nervous system. And so again, there's a variety of reasons why that happens. And generally in our office, we take a thorough history and evaluation to figure out like what exactly happened to you, given the number of accidents and injuries and falls and auto accidents and
Yeah.
lifestyle choices and bad choices that people have made over the years. and try to give them a little bit of direction to what's going on. The third area is what we call your metabolic health. And your metabolic health is your hormones, your digestion, your immune system, how you sleep, your energy, how you manage stress. It's all your internal chemistry that also has a direct reflection on your nervous system. And so we have the structure affecting the nervous system. We have the metabolic systems affecting the nervous system. And pain is a result of some sort of friction or conflict or injury that happens between those divisions. So when we're troubleshooting a body, I can in short order figure out where a problem is coming from through that framework.
Hmm.
And people that are listening to this conversation, you should be able to do that too. Like, is it a localized problem? I saw somebody today, they had injured their shoulder when they were doing bench press, but they were lifting too heavy. They injured their shoulder. That can be a localized injury to the structure.
Yeah.
But it's also irritating the nervous system in that area. It's causing some weakness in that arm. And so, again, it just helps to give a framework for the type of problems that show up. But as I learn about somebody, I can begin to start to make sense of what's going on through that understanding.
Man, wow. No, this is that. Thank you for elaborating on that. I've now so many questions that I have about what you went into there. So, I mean, I guess first question, because you had mentioned before we dive into the different ways that the body's connected to those three systems, you'd first mentioned, how people can have pain from their spine is not aligned correctly, like things like, scoliosis. Like I know, or I think I've been told, if not, I might have self-diagnosed myself, but I believe I have a bit of like an anterior pelvic tilt as well too. Like my anterior is, I guess, tilted a little bit forward, which is also causes a bit of a misalignment in my spine. So can those like issues be like, is there anything you can do about those issues like scoliosis or like anterior pelvic tilt for people that have those misalignments in their spine?
Some of these problems are genetic in nature,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also metabolic
Okay.
and related to hormones. Like when you're going through puberty, the most common statistically scoliosis. Only 4% of adolescents are diagnosed with scoliosis because unless it reaches a certain level of severity, you just won't see it.
Okay.
You have to really, the gold standard for evaluating scoliosis is an X-ray. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're younger, a lot of times you're not getting an X-ray because maybe you don't have pain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had young people who we've had to get X-rays on because they are having pain or sometimes even worse. But 4% of adolescents, once you reach 18, it goes up to about 12%. And
Mm.
so the problem is really progressive over time. And then over 65, the number goes up over 30%.
Mm.
So it's really important throughout our life to make sure that we're elongating in the spine, really like realizing that there's this downward pressure of gravity and we need to extend our body up against it in order to be able to keep ourselves nice and tall and elongated. And I'm sure that if you've seen people that are walking around and they're either leaned over, they're looking down a lot. People look down at their
Yeah.
phone, they're on a laptop,
Mhm.
they're looking down, they're reading a book, they're down. And it can be very damaging to not just the lower back, but also the neck, because the positioning of your head matters too, that's
Yeah.
kind of on the other end of the scale, but that's also part of the problem too.
Okay. So part of it can be genetic, but also can part of it just be like bad posture? Because I think I might have seen this when I was taking like a physical therapy class, but like, like people may stand and like have their hand in their hip and kind of like lean out and really be standing like off center, like can like that, like, I've seen a lot of like women, sometimes will stand like that a bit. Men can do it as well too, but can that like posture, can that, if you're doing it at a young age, can that actually lead to like curvatures in your spine, and can you develop scoliosis from that, or is it typically going to be more so genetic?
I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
I think that posture definitely plays a role in there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's there's a principle that I teach, which has to do with the flexibility of the body.
Yeah.
Most of us are aware of flexibility from the standpoint of stretching our muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Flexibility is also in our joints. And so sometimes people can have weak connective tissue, weak ligaments, but they have strong muscles and they don't realize that's happening. But what happens is if your ligaments are supposed to hold your bones together, but they're all stretched out, it's going to cause the frame of your body to twist, even if you're not doing anything dramatic.
Mm.
You could be walking on a hard surface, or you could be sitting and crossing your legs or doing various things. So kind of in answer to your question is, posture means positioning. And the
Mm-hmm.
positioning of the body matters, like we talked about our body in relationship to gravity. That is posture. And when it's in front of a computer or in front of your workstation, that's referred to as ergonomics, like how your computer is set up, where your body positioning is, how you're sitting in the chair, how high your monitor is. All of these things, we have to micromanage them a little bit in order to make sure that we're protecting our body, because over time, if we continue to do the same thing, we're going to get what we've always gotten.
Absolutely. No, that definitely makes sense. And, just seeing those little things that you may be doing, and especially because so many people spend so much time sitting down nowadays, I feel like it's so important to pay attention to posture. Like I actually got one of those, they're called saddle seats.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
one
So
here.
yeah,
Yep,
so I have one, and it really helps immensely for my posture because like I'm forced to sit up,
sure.
whenever I'm sitting on the seat. So that's some, that's an intervention that I, took a couple months ago. So I'm curious, do you does diet come into play when it comes to like, back pain? Is that something that can, could poor diet also lead to more pain as well too, or does that play like a factor?
It's a great question. Our food is related to that third area, that metabolic area,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that is not really understood or is not really explained to us is that when we put food in our body, the conversation doesn't end there.
Mm.
Our body has to, number one, break the food down. Number two, send that broken nutrition to our cells. And then number three has to eliminate the waste. And so not only waste from foodstuffs, but waste from our hormones, waste from just metabolic processes. And so really the role that food plays in this is that it can weaken our connective tissue. It can weaken our structure.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's part of really what happened to me and how I kind of went down this road to figure out what was going on. It happened to me personally, and I'm happy to share it with you, but um, we don't really think about food like that. But to me, food is energy. And so if you're not, there's a saying that, garbage in, garbage out,
Yeah.
right? And if you put good stuff in, you get good stuff out. But it's not enough just to eat good food. You also need to make sure that the inside of your body is able to receive that food and turn it into energy, turn it into new hormones, turn it into muscle metabolism, turn it into energy so that you can exercise. And if you have good energy and maybe you're young, you feel like everything's going well. You feel like through that whole process, you're taking the food in, you feel good after you eat, your elimination is good,
Mhm.
and and I think that we don't realize that behind the scenes, sometimes the body is compensating for something else.
Mm,
For instance, if the body is not able to manufacture a particular hormone or a particular enzyme or a particular nutrient for the body, it will steal from somewhere else to try to fix the problem. And you can't see that from the outside.
mm.
And if you don't have somebody who is effectively interpreting what's going on inside your body, you can miss it very easily.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I read years ago that, our bodies are amazing at adapting, absolutely amazing at adapting. It's evolved over millions of years to do so. And so for a lot of people, when they are at a nutrient deficiency, you're not going to see that immediately. It's not something that just happens like, okay, you're deficient on some type of nutrient. You're not going to the next day, see an impact. But throughout the years of that constant nutrient deficiency, and your body's like, again, like taking from another area, and from my understanding, where a lot of chronic diseases, can then can then happen. That's how like a lot of chronic diseases develop, because it's these very many years of the lack of something that you don't have, and your body is again working as hard as it can to adapt, but then at a certain point the system's going to break. And then now you've reached this threshold where now you're in this chronic disease state, but it didn't happen that week. It was through like years or decades of being deficient in some area, from like my understanding. So yeah,
They're,
absolutely.
they're doing they're doing more and more research on what they call the gut-brain axis.
Ooh, I love this. Yeah,
So
let's
the
dive into it.
your digestive system has its own brain,
Yeah, the enteric nervous system.
right? So the enteric nervous system is a direct communication with the brain.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of neurodegenerative disorders are a function of some sort of interference between those two systems.
Mm-hmm.
You have people who are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease, or they get dementia, or they've got tremors. They have different things that begin to affect the nervous system, affect the brain's ability to be able to communicate with the body. And so certainly more severe neurodegenerative disorders are a direct connection, but there can also be secondary effects. So for instance, if you're not digesting your food, it may affect your blood chemistry
Mm.
and your blood sugars, right, which is the metabolism of carbohydrate, right, into our body, and how our body metabolizes that can be altered if, for instance, and this is what happened to me, is I was running with low stomach acid. Now, there's a condition called hypochlorhydria,
Mm.
which
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it before this
Yeah.
all happened, but that's the technical name for it. But what happens is your stomach is designed to be very highly acidic.
Mm-hmm.
And when you eat food, it's acidic so that it can break down that food right away and send the nutrients to the cells.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if you have low stomach acids is you end up with partially digested food that then ends up downstream and
Mm.
can irritate the body. And it was causing a low-grade gut infection in my body. This
Interesting.
was many years ago. And so slowly over time, I've been able to do things to raise the hydrochloric acid in my stomach. And sometimes when people are having things like acid reflux, they think that they need to lower the acid in their stomach,
Yeah.
but it's actually sometimes it's the opposite. And you have to get the terrain right. You have to get the inside of the body right. There's something that is malfunctioning that is not allowing the body to regulate the amount of acid that's going on. And very commonly, people use antacids and other things to
Yeah.
bring down the acid. The problem with that is now your body's not able to digest.
Interesting, because that's yeah, I had like acid reflux at some point. I think kind of runs in my family, and that's what I use like antacids. You know,
Right.
I
Right.
didn't realize they could have that impact. That's so like I mean, I know that people drinking uh alkaline water, has, become a big thing. It's been like a big health fad. And, usually if I find water, I'm gonna drink alkaline water because I've heard the benefits of it. I've heard that, oh, you don't want your body to be like too acidic and things like that. I'm like, okay, this is good. So is drinking like water that's like alkaline, could that actually be more detrimental than beneficial?
I think it's a good question. I don't know that I have a good answer for
Touche.
it,
Okay. Yeah.
because certain terrains in the body are designed to be highly acidic.
Mm-hmm.
They're protected in that way. Other aspects of the body are needing to be more alkaline.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't make a blanket statement and say that alkaline water is good or bad.
Fair. Okay.
Really, in my world, we say, don't guess, assess. So
Mhm.
when you assess what's going on, when you have somebody that understands the biochemistry, they understand your body, then we can begin to start to make sense of what's going on. And it can be completely remote to the symptoms you're having. So in the example of acid reflux, you can have, and I'm not saying this is for you, but in general, you could have somebody who has, their liver is not detoxifying, their
Mm.
gallbladder is not emulsifying fats,
Yeah.
your pancreas is designed to produce what's called insulin to bring your blood sugars down. And so
Mm-hmm.
it can affect the way that our body interacts with the things that it's being introduced to. And certainly um, when you drink alkaline water, it seems like it's a good thing, and it very well could be. I would just, for myself, I would say I would want to, number one, have somebody who really understands that biochemistry in my body make a recommendation to me about it,
Mm.
and best case scenario, to do some measurement to see. And sometimes it's just a simple blood test. Sometimes, like a full panel in our office is about 100 items.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the histamine levels, we look at your blood chemistry, we look at your the connection between your digestive system and your immune system and your hormones, and
Mm-hmm.
there's an interactivity between these things versus them being siloed, and they're in like different areas. Oh, it's just a stomach problem. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just a kidney problem. And to me, that's incomplete.
Mm.
And when we can look and we can take a more kind of global look at the human body, we can start to see the patterns that start to emerge so that we can actually learn what's going on and move past it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, like when it comes to like just those blood tests, because I know that I've like asked like my doctor for them before. And so like I'm curious, like when you go to like your general doctor and you get a blood test, like is that going to be like a full panel like blood test to see everything, or do you have to go to like a specialist to get like, a full scope? Because obviously most people probably know that I listen to a lot of podcasts. And so I remember I was listening to one, and they're like, no, if you get the right blood test, you can see like everything. You can see if you're, have some precursors for some diseases. And like, I'm like super proactive. I want to, have a long life. So like, can people just go to their, again, like their just general, the primary care doctor and get a blood test and find all this stuff out? Or do they have to go to like, I don't know, some specialty service or something?
So in our office, my wife, who we've been in practice together for 27 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and she is what's called a functional medicine doctor.
Mm.
And functional medicine fits in more on the end of chiropractic and other natural treatments
Mm-hmm.
versus the medical system. The medical system is its own system, and we can kind of get into that a little bit more later in terms of people taking pharmaceutical meds and surgeries and stuff like that. Since I was 19, I've been focusing on the preservation of my body.
Mm,
And it hasn't been perfect. I've made lots of mistakes, but out of those mistakes, I've learned how to do things differently. And one of those changes was about 10 or 11 years ago, my wife actually started studying this thing called functional medicine. Now, when
mm-hmm.
we were in school, we studied biochemistry, but it was not really functional. It was just a bunch of chemical pathways that you have to learn. But what functional medicine does is it looks at this interaction. It's fascinating because you can begin to understand why certain things are happening,
Mm.
but you do it through evaluation. And so in your town, if you're listening to this conversation, you can just uh, uh, browse and look for functional medicine in your town, and you can look for somebody who does that. Now, I know from my experience with my wife, her name is Dr. Pepper. um, I know from her that I know she's going to be really thorough. I can't say anything about these other practitioners,
You
okay?
say, yeah.
But she's very thorough, and we do work with people remotely. And so we have a couple people in Pennsylvania. We have some people that are overseas, and
Mm.
sometimes people, if they need the support, there's ways to be able to give treatment with people remotely. And so that is an option. If people want to contact us, we can certainly give them that contact information. But I think that it, it's 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 not complicated and not able to be figured out. It's complicated because the body is complex. And the more we can
Yeah.
understand, the more we can understand. And I don't think it's over people's heads to be able to understand some of these things. And especially like when I'm talking about the structure of the body, you can understand that. You kind of have, to some degree, you understand that, say that your ligaments hold your bones together.
Mm-hmm.
May or may not understand that, right? But just in understanding the basics of it, it's like when you're playing sports and you're learning the fundamentals. And part of what we do in the office is we teach people the fundamentals. You have to learn about what these things mean and how and what to do about them. Um, but it can really start with some really basic things: good posture, good nutrition, good sleep,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
physical activity. Doing things to manage your stress, doing some breathing, some meditation. There is an assumption that the human body is really smart. It's very smart. It's very intelligent and knows exactly what it's doing. And if your viewpoint is the body doesn't know what it's doing, it's dumb, it can't figure it out, then maybe you got to fix actually what's between your ears.
Mm.
But if you can understand and you can accept the fact that the body is intelligent, that the fact that our eyes are able to see as clearly as they are, that our heart beats 100,000 times every day and we don't even have to think about it,
Yeah.
that we go to sleep and we wake up and our body works. Like, where did we go? So, in that magnificence of the human body, we can begin to not work against it, but work with it so that we can support it for just more vitality, more energy, more a greater level of health in your life. And but it takes time, it takes energy, it takes work, but it's worth it. And to me, if you don't have your health, you really don't have anything else.
No, absolutely. It's I think it's one of the massive reasons that I've been able to have success in a lot of other areas. When you can get up and you can have energy and you can have that clarity and Like taking care of your body impacts everything, in my opinion, your work, your finances, your relationships. Because if you go into a space and you're, either sleep deprived or you're not eating the right foods, I really feel like it's operating with like the emergency brake on. Like, you just, you're not able to really, do things to your fullest ability. So you mentioned, a couple, the three, main body areas. If I recall correctly, it was support, your nervous system, and your metabolic
Right. So the first one is structure,
structure. Okay.
structure, neurology, metabolic systems.
Structure, neurology, metabolic system. All right. So I'm curious when it comes to neurology, is there anything that we can do to really improve that? Or is it kind of working with the other systems to help neurology? Because, like, from what I remember from school, I mean, I do know that there's neuroplasticity. Not an expert on this. I know that we can, form new neural connections. But I also, I guess, learned in school, I'm not sure if this is old information, but there's not really much you can do to heal the nervous system. If you have nerve damage, you're kind of SOL. That is that the case? Or like, you know, I guess through impacting our structure and our metabolic, can we help improve the nervous? I guess elaborate on that because
I would say the answer to that is yes,
okay.
that it's the nervous system is impacted through our physical structure and through our metabolic systems.
Mm-hmm.
The nervous system is its own system, but not to be morbid here, but a dead person has nerves. The difference with a person who's alive and who's not alive is that there's energy running over those nerves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really in the energy connection between our physical structure and our nervous system, and the energy that runs through our nervous system, and the interaction between our metabolic system and our nervous system and how it impacts that. So whether it means that you're working on your gut to improve your brain function, whether it means that you're helping to detoxify your liver and your kidneys so that you can get rid of waste so you can raise the energy in your body. At least in my experience, I haven't seen a lot that actually has a direct effect only on the nervous system. There are technologies out there. I don't claim to be an expert in all things.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I know. And I think that there's emerging technologies that, may prove to be very valuable, in this regard. But at least my current framework is kind of what I've been explaining here.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's, by improving our metabolic systems, by, improving our structural, whether it be like through posture, things like that, they kind of have because they're all connected, they have I guess, rippling effect on that health of our nervous system. So, can things be and we might have dived into this last time, but I'm curious again, but like, can things be like just in the nervous system? Like, can we have pain? I guess we can, but or more so, like, can it just be in our thoughts? Like, let's say that I think I might have heard a story about like someone like had an injury and they healed from this injury, but they still had the memory of like the injury stored. And this again, not diving into something I'm an expert on, is it possible that your body can heal from something, but you can still almost have the memory of it and it can be stored and you can still be,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
guess, suffering from something, even though it's not really present anymore in a sense?
It's interesting. I was having a conversation. One of my team members was in a really bad accident, and she ended up
Hmm.
having to have neck surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And she lost the sensation in her hands and her feet. They thought she was never going to walk again, and this was in 2006. So it's been 18 years now, and now she's walking. She's fine, but she has certain limitations, and one of those limitations is that she has some loss of sensations. Like she was saying, if she reaches into her purse, she has to look at it with her eyes because her fingers can't actually tell what she's touching.
Hmm.
And we've been doing a treatment with her, and she's been telling me that she's actually starting to have increased sensation back in her fingers, in her
Hmm.
toes. So right now we're kind of just doing an experiment to see whether it will make a difference. I don't know. I mean, it was when we set out to do it, she expressed interest in trying this procedure that we do here to see if it would make any difference. And so far it has. And we've only done maybe 3 or 4 treatments so far, but she's found that her sensation has improved a little bit each time after we've done it. And so time will tell, whether there's permanent damage to those nerves or whether or not something can be done about them. But it sounds like what you're saying is more around kind of behavior or our association with, like, if you it's like the example of, if you hear a song and you think of somebody, your brain kind of goes that pathway. It thinks of the song, thinks of the person or the situation that's going on. We can recondition our mental faculties to change the way we orient to what we do. So I'm trying to give a good example here, how we react to stress, how we move our body physically, like our physical gait. So there was a time in my life I had to actually change the way that I actually walked, because I was walking kind of funny. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but when we're younger, we're not really taught to walk. I know that's kind of a silly example, but
yeah.
My right foot was turning out a little bit, and I was intending to kind of drop one shoulder down. And one day somebody said, why are you standing like that? And I go, I don't know, I just am. And so I stood in front of the mirror and I kind of lined my shoulders up. When I did it, I went, that feels really weird. But I kept doing it. I kept reminding myself, I kept reinforcing it. And eventually it became more natural and I could feel it in my body. But sometimes if you do it for the first time, you don't have a connection to it.
Yeah.
But when you repeat something and you repeat a pattern, you can teach your body all sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking, so I recently started doing like more cold exposure. I know we've talked a little bit about this, and I'd say, I mean, I've like taken cold showers and things like that before, but on my birthday, about a month ago, I went to this spa place and I ended up sitting in this 40-degree room for like 20 minutes, and I was just in like shorts. I like had nothing but shorts on. And I remember sitting there and I was just so, I guess, present in my mind. I was just focusing on my breath. I was just breathing slowly. I was just I wasn't like, I wouldn't allow myself to think about the cold in the room. I was just thinking about my breath and just like being present. And I mean, again, I sat in that room for 20 minutes and I know that I don't like the cold. Like if
Right.
I go outside and before, if I went outside, I was like 50 degrees, I'd be like freezing and everything like that. So is that like just one example of just how we can use our mind to almost become, more, I guess, resilient in a way, or like kind of change our physiological responses by just like the power of our mind? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. I've watched various interviews. We're working with, say, professional or Olympic athletes.
Mm-hmm.
They would look at somebody who's actually physically shooting a basketball versus somebody who's sitting in a chair visualizing himself shooting a basketball,
Mm.
and that actually improves performance.
Yeah. No, I've
So
heard those like,
practice, right? Practice, mental, and our life is very much a mental game.
mm-hmm.
Our mental toughness, our mental acuity to things. And so how we react to things or how we show up in the world is very much kind of between our ears. And so it's something that you can work on, you can better yourself. And in my own world, I listen to, like you said, you listen to podcasts, I listen to various recordings, I read books, I go to courses, I
Mm-hmm.
try things, and to expand my mind, to be able to understand, to be able to improve myself. And so there's a whole kind of self-improvement market, so to speak. And many people think like they were in school and maybe they didn't love being in school, but they love learning. And so if you can learn to love and you can learn to find avenues to be able to fill your mind with good stuff, if you tend to run a little bit negative, maybe not you, you're a super positive person, but if you tend to run negative, you can start filling your mind with good positive stuff and change that if you want to.
No, I absolutely through experience. I definitely feel like your mindset has such a huge indicator to, you know, just the overall experience you have in life, because I've definitely found that through many different things I've gone through, just because I've had a positive mindset, it's made things that seem pretty, like they suck, like they, kind of break, someone down. It's made it not that bad, just because I believe just being able, like, I think, in my opinion, like what we focus on, we tend to, it gets bigger, it becomes more prominent. So it's like, if I'm focusing on this pain, focusing on the negativity, that actually will make it more of a problem, as opposed if I can, I guess, kind of ignore it. Like, again, going back to the cold, like if I can ignore the fact that I'm in a cold room and think about something else, like my breath, my body just doesn't experience that nearly as much. So no, I think that's such a huge factor. So, one thing that I found pretty intriguing as I was just, kind of going through different topics in my research, is that, right now, I guess lifespan is actually apparently starting to decrease. So I found that, like, in 2019, the average lifespan had risen to like 79 years, really a high. But in 2020, it fell to 77. In 2021, it fell to, 76. What do you think is starting, or what do you think is like the cause of this, like, now declining, lifespan that we're, having? Because I mean, medical technology is getting better, all these different things are improving. Why do you feel, do you feel like there may be some reasons why lifespan is, started to slightly decrease in recent years?
I'm not sure that medical technology is improving, but
Oh,
that's for
okay.
another conversation. And
Fair.
my world, I'll tell you some things. I actually haven't seen a medical doctor since I was 19.
Hmm.
I also haven't taken any meds since I was 19.
Mm.
And so that doesn't, I'm not going, look how great I am. It's more so I went down a different path. When I grew up, I had really severe problems that I was seeing the medical community for. But I think in answer to your question, I think that in some ways people are taking better care of themselves, and in other ways there's a lot of pitfalls that people are going through. Whether it's they're not they're not eating real food. They're eating a lot of highly processed, I call it frankenfood or engineered food. They're not able to sleep well. They're not managing their stress and the pressure in their body. They've gained too much weight.
Hmm.
I think that that's very much related to the food aspect. And so if you're not careful when you go into a grocery store and you don't know what to look for, you're going to make huge mistakes. And we're not really taught this in our society. I mean, you
Yeah.
can find it if you look for it, but it's not just on the surface. You have to really look for it. So when they look at lifespan, my impression is that they're taking an average of everybody, like
Mm.
looking
Hmm.
at all the people that have died during a period of time, looking at the average. But does that mean that some people died at 50 and some people died at 110? So I don't look at the person who died at 50.
Touche.
Look
Yeah.
at the person who died at 110, right?
Mm.
So I think that as an individual, not everybody is going to be successful in living a long, healthy life. If you've abused your body early on in your life, it's going to have an effect. It's not
Mm.
for me to tell you how long it's going to last, because that's between you and God, and
Yeah. Yeah. Touche.
who in whatever in your life has taken you there. And I kind of feel like with myself, it's like when it's my time, it's my time.
Hmm.
Everything I can possibly do to take care of myself, so that I can live the best life for as long as I can. And we were talking before the conversation here. I'm developing a program called Living Healthy for Life, and it's really just what it says. How do you live healthy for your whole life? How do you live healthy for a better life? How do you do that? And giving people the practical steps and the tools and the resources to be able to make those kind of decisions. But it starts with understanding. You have to understand the nature of what's going on and then be willing to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with your mental toughness. If you're just happy with yourself being negative, then you're just going to be negative.
Yeah.
But if you want to do something about it and you want to change the way that you respond to things, you're going to put some work into it. And you absolutely can do that. The same thing is true with the health. You can improve your health, but you have to have the right strategy, and you have to have the right desire and discipline to make that happen. I don't listen to everybody, because not everybody should be listened to.
Touche. Yeah, I'm curious. Like, what are things that you commonly see that people can be doing better to improve their health span in life? What are, like, maybe like from patients that you are commonly seeing? Like, what do you feel like is there like a pattern that you've seen with a lot of patients, and like things they may be doing, whether it be okay, like just eating more foods that are alive, or maybe getting outside more, or improving their posture and exercise? Like, or do you feel like there are like main things that, we should be really considering to increase our health span? I know that there's a lot that we can be doing, but what are the main things that you usually, see?
It's like when you're playing sports,
Mm-hmm.
there are the fundamentals, and you have to understand what the fundamentals are. And when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the health of the body, there are fundamentals. And so I'll give you just kind of the general categories here. Food, and I would include, say, water as part of that. Food, water, sleep, some level of activity. Focus on the structure of your body, preserving your joints,
Mm-hmm.
managing your mindset, managing your stress level. On some level, we all have to do that. Life is not just, sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes things happen. You have to react to them. You have to handle them, and how you handle them will help you in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Managing stress through effective breathing, through meditation, through getting out in nature. It's pretty simple, actually, that part of it. The most challenging part to me is really about the food. I think it's probably the thing that requires the most attention of anything that I do. And related to the food is what I was talking before about managing the metabolic health of your body. I believe that there are things we can do ourselves, and then there's things we need help with. Can't do everything ourselves. If you think that you can do everything yourself, I think you're mistaken.
Yeah.
So whether that means that not a great example, but you hire a personal trainer to help you with your exercise if you're not doing it well. But you could exercise on your own. You don't necessarily need a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say you need to see a dentist because there's things that a dentist can see that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Or you need to see a chiropractor because the chiropractor can see stuff that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Or you need to see a functional medicine doctor because the functional medicine doctor can see things that you can't see. My own routine are things that I do myself and things that I hire other people to do. And because I'm in the business, I actually have people that I trust in my circle that help me, that have my best interest at heart. And so it's finding the right person. And sometimes that can be the most challenging part too, finding the right person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did I miss anything there? I'm trying to remember.
So one thing I want to get your opinion on, but I do feel like is pretty impactful. Well, there's two things I actually want to mention there, but one, I think relationships in life are, from what I've been finding, I've been really researching relationships over the last couple of years. And I find that that is, so integral to like overall health. And, because the quality of like the relationships that you have, and that dictates like a lot of, I mean, the stress that you face, like, obviously the habits that you have, where it becomes like food and things like that. And I believe that, loneliness is one of the, it's an isolation. Like that's also caused like a huge prevalence of, various other things. Like this, it's almost like a gateway disease essentially, like, because if you're lonely, like, you're going to do things to make yourself feel better, and then you may start eating things that are unhealthy. And if you're isolating yourself, then you may not take the proactive care of your health that you should be doing. And I'm just, more and more that I dive into aspect of relationships, I realize that how integral they are in our overall health. Because I mean, we're, as humans, we're communal animals. Like we are, we evolved in tribes, we evolved together. And now you see society, we, even us, like, obviously, we met at like a conference, but oftentimes, like, even though we're interacting over the phone. And that, these interactions, even though they're virtual, I feel like they still do not substitute towards like building, real relationships. And it's amazing because we do have like deeper conversations. But for a lot of people, especially like younger generations, they're having these superficial interactions on social media. And that is a relationship, which in my opinion is only a proxy. And it's not really the, the thing. So I think that has an impact on our physical and our mental health, not having, healthy relationships. And I was actually watching this video about blue zones on Netflix. It was like something 100. It was talking about people that in various places of the world where they have blue zones. I think one of them is like Okinawa, Japan. There's like a village in Okinawa, Japan, where people like just, everyone there is like in their 90s and hundreds, and they're like doing things, they're playing guitar, they have like amazing memory. You don't see the prevalence of like dementia and all these things. And one huge aspect that you see in their lifestyle is that like they are surrounded by family even at an older age. Like they're not putting their old folks into a, long-term care facility, uh, to be, kind of alone in a room and have family visit every few days. They're like, they're with their family constantly, and they're like always present around those people you care about. So I think like relationships are, really massive impact on, a lot of these different things as well too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great point. Great
Yeah.
point. Yeah, I mean, I think that each of us needs different things. And so some of
Mm-hmm.
it is discovering for yourself what you do need. And, even from the standpoint of, introversion and extroversion,
Mm-hmm.
which has less to do with kind of being introspective and extra and like outgoing, and is more to do with kind of where you get your energy from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think early on in my life, I was definitely much more kind of introverted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I've gotten older, I've definitely become more extroverted and wanting to be more social and be with other people. And so it's not that I didn't want to be with other people before, but
Yeah.
it just sometimes it changes depending upon when it's in your
Yeah.
life. And just like we were saying, you can change your behavior. You can change your behavior around meeting new people. And you
Mm-hmm.
may go, well, I'm scared to meet other people. Well, you can still do it anyway. You
Yeah.
can you can gain the courage. Learn to talk to people, and they're all skills that can be developed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's one more thing that I want to like just get your perspective on, as we're kind of like wrapping up here. So um do you feel our um ease and I guess like comfort that we have in society, everything is so easy, everything is so comfortable, and like there's, almost, you can just live a lifestyle where you're barely stressing yourself out. Do you feel like that is also impactful on our health? Because I mean, I just like, have this theory, and a lot of it is like through experience and also just like research, but I'm not, not a medical professional in any way, but I feel exposing ourselves to like acute stress, whether it be through like cold plunges or, working out or like these like acute ways of like just stressing our bodies. I feel like that is, I don't know. It like when I get out of a cold plunge, like I feel amazing. I feel like,
Right.
giving me life when I like, work out. And, I see so many, there's so many people on the other side that like they like avoid stress. Like even look, I was listening to something the other day that, younger generations, like I guess Gen Z, like they're very risk averse and they like want to avoid like all pain and they're not really, risk takers. They're not going out and starting a business and doing all these things. And I that like almost I don't know if I want to call it an obsession, but we want to move towards like, safety so much that we're not like, stress yourself out. Is that detrimental towards like just like longevity, almost avoiding any type of
I think it's kind of like, when you lift weights, you
Mhm.
grow when you're lifting something heavier than you're able to currently, and then allowing your muscle to grow.
Mhm.
And so I think it's through resistance that we learn resilience, and we learn to kind of increase our capacity to be able to impact a particular area of our life. If we stay the same, in the office, we talk about, whether somebody is feeling the same, better, or worse. And so those are your only three options. And so if you're going through life and you're not happy with the way things are, challenge yourself, try something new. I
Mm.
actually just started a new routine recently. There's a guy named Perry Marshall,
Mhm.
and he wrote a book that I picked up, and he was talking about something called Renaissance time.
Mm.
And he was saying that his vision is that we as a society are going to have there's going to be another renaissance like there was in the Middle Ages. There's going to be another renaissance of technology and art and all these things that are coming, and that's going to happen from people who are really pushing the edge of things. It's just, I'm a little, I guess it was a little bit surprised that in the Revolutionary War, only 8% of the population actually fought, something like that.
Mm.
Like in any one year, only 2 to 3% of the population fought. And so I don't think that it's everybody. And I think for somebody to rise that level where they're having an impact in their own life, ultimately we the first goal is to impact your own life.
Yeah.
And then the next level is to impact other people. And you do the best you can, but in that resistance, I'm constantly challenging myself. My over the holidays in December, my son bought an ice bath, and so we were doing ice bath for about 2.5 weeks when we were all together, and he took it with him. But
Yeah.
I'll probably at some point I'll get my own. But the most expensive part of having an ice bath is the ice. You got,
Yeah.
but sitting, we got it down to it was like say about 40 degrees, but the
Mhm.
water was 40 degrees. You're sitting in 40-degree water, and it's definitely cold. And
Freezing.
and the first 2 minutes are pretty intense. You have
Yeah.
to really focus on your breath, and then
Yeah.
after that, it's interesting because it starts feeling less cold
Yeah.
because your body just adapts to it.
Mhm.
But if you don't adapt to new things, if you don't try new things, if you don't allow yourself to go through challenges, it's more difficult for your body to grow.
Mm.
I'll
Mhm.
give you I'll give you one firsthand story here. So when I was first going down this pathway, um, I had made a conscious decision to not take any more meds.
Mm. Mhm.
As a child, I had taken a lot of meds growing up, and I was in and out of the hospital, and I had really severe asthma and
Mhm.
allergies, and I just was that was the path that I was on. And I remember I made a very conscious decision. I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. But I made an agreement with myself, and I said, this is my commitment. This is what I'm going to do. But if it's an emergency, you're going to be able to recognize that it's an emergency and you'll act appropriately.
Yeah.
But other than that, for the last many, many years, anytime my body was exposed to something or I was having a reaction symptomatically, so whether I was having an immune episode or I had a physical injury or something happened, I was not medicating myself. And in that, you learn to become resourceful. You learn to handle challenges when you think that you're not sure whether your body is going to get better, but you learn to gain confidence in your own body so that you can actually get stronger mentally, you can get stronger physically. And to me, that's one of the things that's made all the difference.
Yeah. No, I love that because I mean, as you mentioned before, like our bodies are so amazing at adapting. And, I look back and I'm, often surprised at things my body's been able to achieve because I've been willing to put it through, healthy stress in order for it to grow, in the right way. So I think that's, really just one of the many great takeaways from our conversation today that, you have to allow your body to build resilience so it can get stronger. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to, put it through that acute stress and, kind of test the limits a bit. But when you do that often enough, again, I think it's just absolutely amazing how much our bodies can adapt, and our immune systems can become stronger to, fight diseases and things like that. Like I rarely get sick. I think I've been sick maybe twice or three times in the last decade. Like it's I might get the sniffles or allergies, but I really don't experience, too many things that really put me down just because I really, pay attention to my diet, meditating. I know the sleep is something I do need to improve a little bit on, but I'm doing better. So no, you're absolutely right. This stuff our bodies are amazing. Yeah.
And listen, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay
Yeah.
to fail.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. Sometimes
Very true.
you don't get it right, but you want to get to go good decision. Sometimes you have to make a bad decision first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man. Well, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation again. I appreciate you coming onto the show. Yeah, I just think there's so many. I believe that this is a topic that we should be talking about again more often because it's just one of those things that sometimes we need a little bit of a reminder to, maybe take a little bit slow, like look at our habits, look at how we can be, maybe making small shifts because I believe the compounding effect is everywhere in life. And if you can, even just start doing some small changes, now those things will compound and you can really have some really big impacts down the road. But in that same regard, if you're not doing the right things, that stuff will also compound and it can lead to not a very great scenario in the long term. So again, I really appreciate you coming out to the show. This has been awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. And we will have links down in the show notes if you guys want to reach out to Dr. Brad Wolf and his team. He's an awesome person. Like we've known each other almost going on a year now. And man, I love diving into our conversation. So guys, don't hesitate to reach out. And we will see you guys soon on Breaking the Glass Ceiling.